Imagine this. You're a billionaire. Your life's work built from sweat and sacrifice, only to hear your own daughter's voice on a forgotten phone call, sneering. The old fool's sitting on billions, too busy crying to notice we're stealing it all. Picture the gut-wrenching shock your flesh and blood, plotting to rob you blind, to lock you away while they cash out your empire for hundreds of millions. What would you do if the one you loved most betrayed you for money, mocking your pain with every dollar they planned to take? In the next 45 minutes, you'll witness a tale of treachery, so vile it'll make your blood boil, a father's heart shattered, and a revenge so cunning it'll leave you speechless. Welcome to RevengeX, where electrifying stories of betrayal and triumph set your soul ablaze. We're thrilled to have you join our community of viewers who celebrate unyielding resilience and fierce courage. Hit that subscribe button to never miss a heart-pounding tale, and it'd be incredible if you smashed the like button, shared this video, or dropped a comment with the time and city or country you're watching from. Your likes, shares, and heartfelt comments are the greatest spiritual gift, the fuel that keeps this channel burning bright. Now, buckle up for a story that'll hit you right in the feels. Let's dive in. My name is William Bill Carter, a 68-year-old retired tech mogul who built a fortune from nothing in Silicon Valley. I started with a single software patent in 1985, coding in a cramped garage in Palo Alto, and turned it into a multi-billion-dollar empire that revolutionized data encryption. By the time I sold my company in 2015, I was worth over $2 billion, a man who could buy anything except, it seems, the loyalty of my own flesh and blood. My wife, Margaret, passed 3 years ago, leaving me in our sprawling mansion in Atherton, California, a monument to our shared dreams, filled with memories of her laughter and our daughter Emily's childhood. I thought I'd raised Emily to value family over fortune. But tonight, as I sat in my mahogany-paneled study, a phone call left on speaker shattered that illusion, exposing a betrayal so vile it tore my heart to pieces. It was a quiet Thursday evening, the kind Margaret used to love, with the scent of eucalyptus drifting through the open windows of our 10,000-square-foot estate. I was sipping a glass of Napa Valley Cabernet, staring at Margaret's portrait above the fireplace, her blue eyes still sparkling with the warmth that had anchored me for 40 years. The phone rang, and I smiled when I saw Emily's name on the caller ID. At 32, she was my pride, a marketing executive who'd climbed the ranks at a San Francisco startup, married to Nathan, a slick hedge fund manager with a smile I'd never quite trusted. "Dad, how's my favorite guy doing?" Emily's voice was honey, sweet, the same tone she'd used as a teenager when she wanted concert tickets or a new car. We chatted about her latest business trip to New York, her voice bright with the promise of a big deal. I told her about my day tending the rose garden Margaret had planted, meeting with my old friend Tom Reynolds, a loyal accountant who'd managed my finances since the early days. "You're eating okay, right, Dad? You know you can hire a chef anytime," she said, her concern sounding genuine. I chuckled, brushing off the suggestion, not mentioning the freezer full of meals I'd barely touched since Margaret's death. Then came the mistake that changed everything. Emily didn't hang up. I heard rustling, the clink of wine glasses, and her voice, no longer warm but sharp as a blade. "Nathan, it's time we deal with Dad. He's a liability now, sitting on that $3 billion fortune like a clueless old man." My hand froze on the glass, wine sloshing onto my desk. Nathan's voice, cold and calculated, cut through the line. "He's a walking disaster, Emily. Forgetting appointments. Leaving the stove on last week, remember? We need to get him into a facility, some high-end nursing home where he can't burn down that Atherton gold mine." My chest tightened, the air sucked out of the room. Emily laughed, a cruel, mocking sound that didn't belong to the girl I'd raised. "That mansion's worth at least $50 million in today's market. We sell it, we're set for life. Buy that penthouse in Manhattan, maybe a yacht. He'll thank us for taking care of him." But it didn't stop there. The betrayal deepened, each word a fresh stab. "And his investment portfolio," Nathan added, his voice dripping with greed. "I've been digging through his accounts. Tom's been too loyal to notice. We could siphon off another $100 million before anyone blinks." Emily's tone turned conspiratorial. "I've already got a lawyer friend, Jessica Harper, who can draft papers to declare him incompetent. She owes me a favor from college. Once he's in the home, we control everything, bank accounts, stocks, the offshore trusts. He's so trusting. He'll sign anything I put in front of him." My vision blurred, not from tears, but from a rage I hadn't felt since my days fighting corporate sharks. They weren't just after my home, they wanted my entire legacy, my life's work, the empire I'd built for them. Then came the third blow, a twist I hadn't seen coming. "Oh, and I ran into Clara at the club. Emily said, mentioning Clara Evans, my longtime personal assistant who'd been like a second daughter to me. She's been asking too many questions about Dad's estate. I told her to back off, but she's loyal to him. We might need to handle her, Nathan snorted. Offer her a payoff or make sure she knows what happens to people who cross us. We can't have her warning him. My heart sank further. Clara, who'd brought me coffee during late-night coding sessions, who'd cried at Margaret's funeral, was now a target in their scheme. The room spun, my hands trembling as I set the phone down, its speakers still broadcasting their treachery. I sat in the dark, Margaret's portrait staring back at me, her eyes seeming to scream, "How could you let this happen, Bill?" The betrayal wasn't just Emily and Nathan, it was a web of deceit involving Jessica, a supposed friend, and now threats against Clara, the one person who'd stood by me without question. My mind raced, torn between disbelief and a growing fury. I'd paid for Emily's Ivy League education $20 million over 4 years, including donations to secure her spot. I'd funded her lavish wedding, a $15 million affair at Pebble Beach, because she'd begged for a day to remember. I'd bailed Nathan out when his hedge fund tanked, covering his $10 million losses without a second thought. And this was my reward? To be labeled a liability? A senile old man to be locked away while they carved up my fortune like vultures? The pain was unbearable, a physical ache in my chest. I'd given Emily everything, my love, my trust, my legacy, only to hear her laugh at my vulnerability. The mansion, every room designed with Margaret's touch, from the Italian marble in the foyer to the custom skylights in the library, was more than a house. It was our sanctuary, where Emily took her first steps, where Margaret and I danced to Sinatra on quiet evenings. Now it was just square footage to them, a $50 million paycheck. My inner struggle was a storm grief for the daughter I thought I knew, rage at their audacity, and a gnawing fear that I'd been too blind, too generous, as Margaret had warned. "Don't let her take you for granted, Bill," she'd said, her voice weak from chemo. I hadn't listened, and now I was paying the price. But beneath the hurt, something harder was forming, a resolve forged in decades of outsmarting competitors. They thought I was a doddering fool, too old to fight back. They were wrong. I wasn't just Bill Carter, the grieving widower. I was the man who'd built a billion-dollar empire from a single line of code. I picked up my phone, hands steady now, and dialed Tom Reynolds. "Tom, it's Bill. I need you to pull every financial record tied to Emily and Nathan, tonight." His voice, steady and loyal, didn't hesitate. "Whatever you need, Bill. I'm on it." Then I called Clara, warning her to watch her back. "Stay safe, Clara. They're coming for us both." Her gasp confirmed her loyalty, but also her fear. Finally, I pulled out the card of Richard Langston, a ruthless corporate attorney I'd kept on retainer for emergencies. It was time to fight fire with fire. As I hung up, the eucalyptus scent faded, replaced by the metallic tang of my own resolve. Emily and Nathan thought they could steal my life, my home, my legacy. They'd underestimated me. But they were about to learn what happens when you betray a man who built his world from nothing. The war was on, and I'd make sure they felt every blow. The study was suffocating now, Margaret's portrait no longer a comfort but a silent witness to my unraveling. The Cabernet sat untouched, its rich red surface reflecting the dim glow of the chandelier I'd imported from Venice for her 40th birthday. My hands, once steady enough to code algorithms that secured billions in transactions, shook as I clutched the phone, its screen still glowing with Emily's disconnected call. The betrayal wasn't just a knife in my back, it was a chainsaw, ripping through every memory, every sacrifice, every moment I'd thought we were family. Emily's mocking laugh echoed in my skull, Nathan's smug calculations clawing at my sanity. They weren't just after my $50 million mansion, they wanted my entire $2 billion empire. And they'd recruited Jessica Harper, a supposed friend, to declare me incompetent. Worse, they'd threatened Clara, my loyal assistant, a woman who'd been more family than my own daughter. The air felt thick with treachery, and my heart pounded with a mix of grief and fury, a storm brewing inside me that I hadn't felt since I outmaneuvered a hostile takeover in 1999. I paced the hardwood floors, each step a reminder of the life Margaret and I had built. The betrayal wasn't singular, it was layered, a triple-decker of deceit. First, Emily's voice, dripping with street-level venom, calling me a washed-up old geezer who'd be better off drooling in a fancy home. Then Nathan, his tone pure Wall Street slime, sneering, "The old bastard's sitting on a gold mine, and he's too senile to know we're cashing it out." And now, a third shock. I'd overheard them plotting with Jessica, who'd texted Emily during their call. Got the paperwork ready. Her message read, Bill's mental decline is a slam dunk. We'll have him committed by next month. My stomach churned. Jessica, who dined at our table, who'd toasted my success at company galas, was now their legal weapon, ready to strip me of my autonomy for a cut of the profits. The room spun as I gripped the edge of my desk, fighting the urge to scream. How could I have been so blind, pouring my love into a daughter who'd turned into a viper? My phone buzzed again, snapping me out of my spiral. It was Clara, her voice trembling but resolute. Bill, I just got a call from Emily. She told me to stay out of your affairs or I'd regret it. What's going on? I swallowed hard, the weight of her loyalty crashing against my daughter's betrayal. Clara, they're planning to lock me away and steal everything. You're not safe either. Her gasp was audible, followed by a steely promise. I'm with you, Bill. Whatever you need, I've got your back. Clara's devotion, unshaken after 20 years, was a lifeline in this sea of deceit. But it also deepened my pain. Why couldn't my own daughter show even a fraction of that loyalty? My inner struggle was a battlefield. Grief for the Emily I'd lost, rage at her cruelty, and a gnawing guilt that I'd somehow failed as a father, raising a child who saw me as a cash machine. Then came another jolt, a fresh betrayal that hit like a sucker punch. I opened my laptop, driven by a sudden suspicion, and logged into my security system's cloud footage. Last week, I'd caught Nathan snooping in my study, claiming he was looking for a pen. Now, the footage revealed the truth. He'd rifled through my safe, photographing documents, my will, my trust agreements, even the offshore accounts I'd set up for Emily's future. My heart sank as I realized he'd been planning this heist for months, long before their nursing home scheme. The camera caught his smirk as he pocketed a USB drive, muttering, "This'll make us untouchable, babe." My fists clenched, nails digging into my palms. Nathan wasn't just a greedy son-in-law, he was a predator, and I'd welcomed him into my home. The third shock came minutes later, as I scrolled through emails flagged by Tom Reynolds. He'd found transactions I hadn't authorized $50 million siphoned from a subsidiary account, funneled through shell companies tied to Nathan. Bill, I'm digging deeper, Tom texted, his loyalty a beacon in the darkness. This looks like fraud, and Emily's name is on the paperwork. My daughter, my own blood, had signed off on stealing from me. The pain was visceral, like a heart attack I couldn't shake. I'd given her everything, private tutors, European vacations, a $20 million trust fund, and she'd repaid me by forging my signature to gut my legacy. My mind screamed, how dare they? How dare she? Yet beneath the rage, a quieter voice whispered, did I give her too much? Did I make her this way? The drama escalated as I overheard another call, this one from Nathan to a new player, Vince Russo, a shady real estate developer I'd met at a charity gala. Yo, Vince, the old man's done for, Nathan bragged, his voice pure street hustle. We're flipping his Atherton pad for 50 mil. Easy. You in for a cut? Vince's laugh was oily, promising to grease the wheels, with local officials to fast-track the sale. My home, where Margaret and I had hosted Emily's 10th birthday with a pony in the backyard, was now a bargaining chip for their crew of lowlifes. The betrayal was a hydra, sprouting new heads every time I thought I'd grasped its depth. My chest ached as I imagined strangers trampling Margaret's rose garden, tearing down the library where we'd read to Emily every night. My inner turmoil was a war of emotions, grief, fury, and a desperate need to reclaim my dignity. I sank into Margaret's favorite armchair, its velvet worn from years of her late-night reading. I could almost hear her voice, soft but firm. Bill, you're too kind. Don't let them break you. But they had broken me, hadn't they? I trusted Emily, believed in her goodness, only to be mocked as a clueless old man. The pain was doubled by the thought of Clara, now at risk because of my daughter's greed, and Tom, working late to unravel their fraud. Their loyalty made Emily's betrayal cut deeper, like salt in a wound. I wanted to confront her, to scream, how could you do this to me? But another part of me, the calculating tech mogul, knew confrontation was weakness. They thought I was a pushover, a relic to be managed. They were wrong. I stood, my resolve hardening like steel in a forge. I called Richard Langston, my attorney, his voice sharp with the ruthlessness I needed. Richard, it's Bill. My daughter and her husband are trying to rob me. Blind 50 million already gone, my house next. I want them crushed. Richard didn't flinch. Give me 48 hours. We'll lock down your assets and make them regret crossing you. Then I texted Clara, telling her to go off-grid until I could protect her. Finally, I called Tom, asking him to trace every cent of the stolen 50 million. The wheels were turning, and I felt a spark of the old Bill Carter, the man who'd outsmarted rivals and built an empire. Emily, Nathan, Jessica, and Vince thought they could bury me, but I was about to bury them under the weight of their own greed. The Atherton mansion, my sanctuary, would be my weapon, and their betrayal would be their undoing. The mansion's silence was deafening, broken only by the faint hum of the security system I'd installed when my company went public in 1992. I stood in the foyer, the Italian marble cold beneath my feet, each tile laid with Margaret's vision of a home that would outlast us. The betrayal I'd uncovered Emily and Nathan's plot to steal my $50 million estate, their $50 million theft from my accounts, and their threats against Clara burned like acid in my veins. But now, a new layer of treachery unfolded. Each revelation a fresh wound, each one fueling a fire I hadn't felt since my days battling corporate giants. My heart was a war zone, torn between the love I still carried for my daughter and a righteous fury that demanded justice. I wasn't just fighting for my fortune. I was fighting for my dignity, for the life Margaret and I had built, for the man I refused to let them reduce to a senile old bastard. The first shock came at dawn, as I sipped black coffee in the kitchen, the same counter where Margaret used to bake blueberry scones for Emily's school fundraisers. My phone buzzed with a voicemail from an unknown number, left in the middle of the night. It was Vince Russo, the sleazy developer Nathan had roped into their scheme. His voice dripped with street-level swagger, the kind you hear in backroom deals at dive bars. "Yo, Carter, you old fool, you're sitting on a $50 million cash cow and don't even know it. Step aside, Grandpa, or we'll make sure you're drooling in a padded room by Christmas." My grip tightened on the mug, coffee sloshing onto the granite. Vince wasn't just a pawn, he was an active player, taunting me directly, assuming I was too weak to fight back. The audacity of his threat, the casual cruelty of his words, hit me like a freight train. My mind flashed to the charity gala where I'd met him, shaking his clammy hand while he complimented Margaret's elegance. Now, he was spitting on her memory, plotting to gut our home. The second blow landed an hour later when Tom Reynolds called, his voice tight with urgency. "Bill, I found something worse. Emily's been meeting with a tech rival, Global Sync Solutions. They've offered her a $100 million deal to leak your proprietary encryption codes." My knees buckled, and I sank into a chair, the plush leather no comfort against this betrayal. Global Sync, the company I'd crushed in a patent war in 2005, was now using my daughter to destroy me. She wasn't just after my money, she was selling my life's work, the algorithms I'd spent decades perfecting, the ones that secured governments and corporations worldwide. The pain was excruciating, a double-edged sword of betrayal and shame. I'd taught Emily to code at 10, sitting at this very counter, her eyes wide with wonder as I explained binary. Now, she was weaponizing my legacy against me, mocking me as a washed-up has-been who'd never notice. The third shock came via Clara, who arrived at the mansion unannounced, her face pale but resolute. "Bill, I hacked into Nathan's email, don't ask how. He's been working with a crooked doctor, Dr. Alan Kessler, to fake a dementia diagnosis for you." She slid a tablet across the table, showing emails where Nathan bragged about Kessler's willingness to sign off on the old man's crazy papers for a $5 million cut. My breath caught, the room tilting as I read Kessler's words. "Carter's an easy mark. We'll have him locked up before he knows what hit him." The betrayal was now a hydra with endless heads: Emily, Nathan, Jessica, Vince, and now Kessler, a doctor I'd never met, all conspiring to strip me of my freedom. Clara's loyalty, her risk in digging up this dirt, was a beacon, but it also deepened my anguish. Why did a near stranger care more for my dignity than my own daughter? My inner struggle was a tempest, a clash of grief, rage, and self-doubt that threatened to drown me. I paced the library, surrounded by Margaret's first edition novels, each one a testament to our shared love of stories. I'd always believed in Emily's goodness, seen her as the best parts of Margaret, her wit, her charm. But now, I saw only her greed, her willingness to sell me out for a $100 million payday. The pain was visceral, a physical ache in my chest, as I wondered where I'd gone wrong. Had I spoiled her with private jets and penthouse vacations? Had I failed to teach her the value of loyalty? Margaret's warning echoed. "Don't let her take you for granted, Bill." I'd ignored it, and now my daughter was spitting on our legacy, calling me a useless old prick behind my back. The injustice burned, but so did my guilt. Maybe I'd made her this way, giving her too much, shielding her from consequences. Yet, beneath the hurt, a fire was growing, stoked by each new betrayal. I wasn't just a grieving father, I was William Carter, the man who'd outsmarted Wall Street sharks and built a $2 billion empire from a garage. They thought they could break me, but they'd awakened a beast. I called Richard Langston again, my voice steady despite the storm inside. Richard, they're not just after the house. They've stolen 50 million, they're selling my codes for 100 million, and they've got a doctor to fake my dementia. I want them buried. Richard's response was ice cold, professional. Bill, we'll freeze their accounts, file fraud charges, and block Global Sync's deal. I've got a private investigator, Maria Torres, who can dig deeper. She's discreet and ruthless. Maria, a new ally, was my middleman, a shadow to counter their shadows. The drama escalated as I uncovered another layer of deceit. Checking my security footage again, I found a clip from 2 nights ago. Emily, in my study, slipping a tracking device into my desk drawer. "This'll keep tabs on the old fool," she'd whispered to Nathan, her voice laced with contempt. They weren't just stealing, they were spying, treating me like prey in my own home. My heart pounded, a mix of fury and betrayal, as I realized they'd been watching my every move, waiting for me to slip up. The final straw was a text from Vince to Nathan, intercepted by Maria. "Tell Emily to speed it up. I've got buyers lined up for 75 million, and they don't care if the old man's still breathing." The callousness, the sheer brutality of their greed, was a punch to the gut. My home, where Emily had danced in her prom dress, was now a commodity to be sold to the highest bidder, my life an afterthought. I stood at the bay window, staring at Margaret's rose garden, the petals glowing in the morning light. The emotional weight was crushing, but it was also clarifying. I wasn't their victim, I was their reckoning. Clara sat beside me, her hand on my arm, her loyalty, a quiet strength. "We'll get through this, Bill," she said, her voice cracking with emotion. I nodded, but inside I was a man reborn in fire. Emily, Nathan, Jessica, Vince, and Kessler thought they could bury me in a nursing home, strip my legacy, and laugh all the way to the bank. But I was William Carter, and I'd built my world from nothing once before. I'd do it again, and this time, I'd make sure they paid for every cent, every lie, every cruel word. The war wasn't just on, it was personal, and I was ready to burn their world to the ground. The morning sun streamed through the skylights of my Atherton mansion, casting jagged shadows across the library where I'd once read bedtime stories to Emily. The air was thick with the scent of old books and betrayal, each breath a reminder of the war I was now waging. Emily, Nathan, Jessica, Vince, and now Dr. Kessler had woven a web of deceit, $50 million stolen, my encryption codes up for grabs, a fake dementia diagnosis in the works, and my home reduced to a $75 million pawn in their game. My heart was a furnace, burning with rage and grief, but also with a clarity I hadn't felt in years. I wasn't just fighting to save my fortune. I was fighting to reclaim my soul from the ashes of my daughter's treachery. Margaret's voice echoed in my mind, soft but unyielding. "You're stronger than they know, Bill." I was about to prove her right. The first shock hit like a thunderbolt as I sat at my desk, reviewing Tom's latest findings. He'd uncovered a secret meeting Emily had arranged with a shady fixer named Tony the Shark Malone, a Silicon Valley bottom feeder known for making problems disappear. An email from Nathan, forwarded by Tom, revealed their plan. Tony says he can make the old geezer's resistance vanish for 10 million. The fool's too busy reminiscing about his dead wife to notice us gutting his empire. My hands shook as I read Tony's reply. "Carter's a has-been. I'll have him scared stiff or 6 feet under, whichever's cheaper." The casual brutality of it, the idea that my own daughter would hire a thug to intimidate or eliminate me, sent a chill down my spine. I'd funded Emily's startup dreams, poured 20 million into her failed ventures, only for her to turn that money into a weapon against me. The pain was a physical weight, pressing on my chest, as I pictured her laughing at my pathetic trust. The second blow came when Clara burst through the front door, her eyes wild with panic. "Bill, I found something on Jessica's laptop. She's been feeding Vince fake appraisals to undervalue your mansion." She showed me documents proving Jessica had forged reports, listing my $50 million estate at a mere 15 million to trick me into a quick sale. "That greedy bitch thinks you're too dumb to check the numbers," Clara quoted from Jessica's texts, her voice trembling with indignation. The betrayal stung deeper than I thought possible. Jessica, who'd cried at my retirement party, who'd called me the best boss in the valley, was now a snake in my inner circle. My mind reeled, torn between disbelief and a searing anger. I'd mentored Jessica, given her a $7 million stock bonus when she left my company, and now she was spitting in my face, mocking me as a doddering old fool who'd sign anything. The third shock was a gut punch delivered by Maria Torres, Richard's private investigator, who called with a bombshell. "Bill, I hacked into Vince's cloud drive. He's not just after your house, he's got a deal with a Chinese conglomerate to sell your entire patent portfolio for 200 million. My breath caught, the room spinning as I processed the scale of their greed. My patents, the backbone of my $2 billion empire, were the reason banks trusted my encryption. Vince's emails to Nathan were vile. Carter's too busy crying over his wife's grave to see us cleaning him out. We'll be sipping Mai Tais in Macau while he's rotting in a home. The image of my life's work, decades of sleepless nights, of Margaret's encouragement, through every failure being sold to foreign sharks, was a betrayal beyond money. It was a desecration of everything I'd built, and Emily was complicit, signing off on every step with a smirk. My inner struggle was a maelstrom, a clash of heartbreak, and resolve that threatened to tear me apart. I paced the library, my footsteps echoing on the oak floors I'd laid for Margaret's 40th anniversary. Every corner of this house held her memory, the skylights she'd sketched on a napkin, the bookshelves we'd filled together. I'd believed Emily carried her mother's heart, but now I saw only a stranger, a woman who'd called me a pathetic old relic while plotting to sell my soul. The grief was overwhelming, a tidal wave of loss for the daughter I'd raised, the one who'd once clung to my hand at Disneyland. Had I failed her, giving her too much, shielding her from struggle? Or was she always this cruel, waiting for the chance to strike? The injustice of it, their mocking laughter, their assumption, I was too broken to fight, lit a fire in my gut. I wasn't their victim, I was their reckoning. The drama escalated as I uncovered another layer of treachery. Maria sent me a recording of a call between Emily and Tony Malone, intercepted from a burner phone. "Make it quick, Tony," Emily snapped, her voice pure venom. "The old man's a sitting duck, probably weeping over mom's old recipes. Scare him into signing the power of attorney, or we'll make sure he's not a problem." Tony's laugh was guttural, promising to rough up the geezer for a $5 million bonus. My heart pounded, a mix of fear and fury, as I realized they weren't just stealing, they were willing to hurt me, maybe worse. Clara, sitting across from me, was shaking, her loyalty a stark contrast to Emily's cruelty. "Bill, we can't let them win," she said, tears in her eyes. Her devotion, her willingness to risk everything, was a lifeline. But it also deepened my pain. Why did my daughter hate me this much? I stood at the window, staring at the rose garden where Margaret and I had celebrated Emily's college acceptance. The memory clashed with the present, a dagger in my heart. I wanted to call Emily, to scream, "How could you hire a thug to threaten your own father?" But the tech mogul in me, the one who'd outsmarted rivals in boardrooms, knew better. Confrontation was weakness. Strategy was power. I called Richard, my voice like steel. "They're hiring hitmen now, Richard. Tony Malone's on their payroll, and they're selling my patents for 200 million. Lock it all down, accounts, patents, everything." Richard's response was calm, lethal. "I'm filing injunctions today. Maria's tailing Tony. We'll have evidence to bury them by tomorrow." Then I turned to Clara, her face etched with worry. "Go to my safe house in Monterey. Stay low until I say it's safe." She nodded, her loyalty a quiet strength that kept me grounded. The final twist came as I checked my security cameras again, driven by a nagging instinct. Footage from the garage showed Nathan planting a hidden microphone under my Bentley's dashboard, muttering, "The old prick won't know we're listening to every move." They weren't just spying, they were invading every corner of my life, treating me like a mark in a con. My resolve hardened, the fire within me roaring. Emily, Nathan, Jessica, Vince, Kessler, and now Tony thought they could crush me, mock me, erase me. But I was William Carter, the man who'd turned a single line of code into a global empire. I'd built this life from nothing, and I'd tear it down on my terms. The mansion, the patents, the $2 billion, they'd never touch a cent. I was done being their fool. The battle lines were drawn, and I was ready to make them pay for every lie, every threat, every betrayal. The Atherton mansion felt like a fortress under siege, its walls echoing with the ghosts of Margaret's laughter and the venom of Emily's betrayal. I stood in the wine cellar, surrounded by bottles we'd collected from Napa Valley tastings, each one a memory of happier days. The sting of my daughter's treachery, her plot to steal my $50 million home, the $50 million theft from my accounts, the $100 million deal to sell my patents, the fake dementia diagnosis. And now the threat of Tony Malone's violence burned hotter with every new revelation. My heart was a crucible, melting grief and rage into a steely resolve. I wasn't just fighting for my $2 billion empire. I was fighting for the man Margaret believed in, the man who'd built this life from nothing. They thought they could crush me, mock me as a doddering old fool, but I was about to turn their greed into their downfall. The first shock came as I met with Richard Langston in his sleek Palo Alto office, the morning light glinting off his glass-topped desk. Maria Torres, his private investigator, had dug up a bombshell. Emily had bribed a board member from my old company, Victor Klein, to falsify records and claim I'd been erratic during my final years as CEO. Victor's email to Nathan, intercepted by Maria, was pure street-level slime. Carter's a washed-up loser, too busy mourning his wife to notice us rewriting history. For 10 million, I'll swear he was losing it before he retired. My chest tightened, the betrayal cutting deeper than ever. Victor, who'd toasted my success at company retreats, who'd called me a mentor, was now selling lies to bury me. I'd given him a $5 million severance package when he left, and this was his gratitude joining Emily's cabal to paint me as a lunatic. The pain was raw, a fresh wound in a heart already scarred by my daughter's cruelty. The second blow landed when Clara called from the Monterey safe house, her voice shaking with fear and loyalty. "Bill, I found a hidden email account Emily's been using. She's been leaking your personal emails to a tabloid, the Silicon Scoop, for a $1 million payout." My vision blurred, not from tears, but from a fury that threatened to consume me. The emails were private letters I'd written to Margaret after her death, poured out in grief, confessing my fears of losing Emily's love. Now, my daughter was selling my soul to a rag, her texts to the editor vicious. "The old man's a sentimental wreck, crying over mom like a pathetic sap. Print this, and we'll split the profits." The image of my private pain splashed across headlines, mocked by strangers, was a betrayal so intimate it felt like a physical blow. I'd taught Emily to value privacy, to cherish family, yet here she was, turning my vulnerability into a spectacle for profit. The third shock was a gut-wrenching discovery from Tom Reynolds, who arrived at the mansion with a laptop full of damning evidence. "Bill, Nathan's been meeting with a hacker, Mia Chen, to break into your offshore accounts. They're after another 100 million. Tom's face was grim as he showed me chat logs where Mia bragged, "Carter's too busy playing widower to lock down his accounts. We'll bleed him dry before he blinks." The hacker's disdain, calling me a clueless old bastard, was a knife in my gut. But what hurt more was Nathan's reply. "Emily says he's so broken, he won't even notice till we're in Barbados." My daughter, the girl I'd carried on my shoulders at Santa Cruz Beach, was orchestrating a heist to strip me of everything, laughing at my grief while planning her tropical escape. The betrayal was a multi-headed monster, each revelation more vicious than the last. My inner struggle was a storm of anguish and defiance, tearing at the seams of my soul. I paced the wine cellar, the cool air doing nothing to soothe the fire in my chest. Every bottle on these racks held a memory. Margaret's smile as we toasted our 20th anniversary, Emily's giggles as she sneaked a sip at 16. I'd built this life for them, sacrificed sleepless nights to secure their future, only to be mocked as a sentimental sap who'd never fight back. The grief was crushing, a weight that threatened to pull me under. Had I been too soft, too trusting, as Margaret warned? Or was Emily's heart always this cold, hidden behind her practiced smiles? The injustice of it, their assumption that I was too broken to resist, ignited a fury that drowned out the pain. I wasn't their pawn, I was their judge, and I'd make them pay for every lie, every cent, every cruel word. The drama escalated as I sat with Richard and Maria, plotting my counterstrike. Richard's eyes gleamed with predatory focus. "Bill, we can freeze their accounts and file fraud charges, but let's hit harder. I know a real estate titan, Laura Bennett, who can sell your mansion for 75 million in a week, cash, no questions." My heart raced at the thought of turning their prize into my weapon. But then came another twist. Maria uncovered a voicemail from Tony Malone to Emily, his voice dripping with menace. "Your dad's a stubborn old prick, but I've got boys who can make him disappear for good. 15 million. And he's gone." The threat of violence, the idea that my daughter would pay to have me erased, was a blow that nearly broke me. Clara, listening via speakerphone, gasped, her loyalty a stark contrast to Emily's cruelty. "Bill, you're not alone," she whispered, her voice cracking. Her devotion was a lifeline, but it deepened my pain. Why did my daughter want me dead? My resolve hardened as I devised a plan to strike first. I called Laura Bennett, her voice crisp with Silicon Valley efficiency. "Mr. Carter, your mansion's a gem. I've got a Saudi investor ready to pay 75 million cash, closing in 5 days." I nodded, the decision a weight lifted and a wound reopened. Selling the house meant severing my last tie to Margaret, but it also meant denying Emily and Nathan their prize. The final shock came as I checked my security system one last time. Footage showed Jessica sneaking into my garage, planting a GPS tracker on my motorcycle, muttering. The old fool's too busy grieving to notice we're tracking his every step. The invasion of my privacy, the relentless mockery, was the last straw. I wasn't just fighting for my fortune, I was fighting for my right to exist. I stood in the wine cellar, clutching a bottle from our last Napa trip, Margaret's favorite vintage. The pain of Emily's betrayal was a physical ache, but the fire within me burned brighter. I called Richard, my voice steady as iron. Get Laura to start the sale. Freeze every account tied to Emily, Nathan, Victor, and Mia. And tell Maria to tail Tony I want him in cuffs. Clara's voice came through, fierce with loyalty. I'm with you, Bill. They'll regret this. I looked at Margaret's portrait in my mind, her eyes urging me on. Emily, Nathan, Jessica, Vince, Kessler, Victor, Mia, and Tony thought they could bury me. But I was William Carter, and I'd built an empire from nothing. This mansion, this life, was mine to wield, and I'd use it to crush their greed. The plan was in motion, and their reckoning was coming faster than they could imagine. The Atherton mansion, once my sanctuary, now felt like a battlefield, its marble floors and crystal chandeliers mocking the war raging within me. The sting of Emily's betrayal, her plot to steal my $50 million home, the $50 million theft from my accounts, the $100 million patent sale, the fake dementia diagnosis, the hired thug Tony Malone, the falsified board records, the tabloid leaks, and the trackers planted in my life had forged my grief into a blade of resolve. I stood in the dining room where Margaret and I had hosted Emily's graduation dinner, the mahogany table now a war room for my counterstrike. My heart was a furnace of pain and purpose, torn between love for the daughter I'd lost and a fury that demanded justice. They thought they could bury me as a pathetic old sap, but I was William Carter, and I was about to turn their greed into their ruin. The first shock came as Laura Bennett arrived, her tailored suit and sharp eyes radiating Silicon Valley hustle. She walked through the mansion, her tablet flashing comps for Atherton Estates. Bill, your place is pristine custom everything, no repairs needed. My Saudi buyers offering $75 million, cash, closing in 5 days. My pulse raced, the decision, a gut punch and a lifeline. Selling meant severing my last tie to Margaret, but it also meant snatching Emily and Nathan's prize from their grasp. Then Laura dropped a bombshell. I got a tip from a contact. Vince Russo's been spreading lies to other buyers, saying your house has structural issues to tank the price. Her voice hardened as she showed me texts Vince sent to a rival developer. Carter's too busy crying over his dead wife to know his mansion's a lemon. We'll snag it for $20 million, flip it for 60. The betrayal burned hotter. Vince, not content with stealing my patents, was now sabotaging my home's value, mocking me as a washed-up loser who'd never notice. The second blow landed when Maria Torres sent an encrypted file, her voice tense over the phone. Bill, I intercepted a call between Nathan and a new player, Sofia Delgado, a crooked appraiser working with Jessica. They're forging documents to claim your mansion's in a flood zone, slashing its value by $30 million. My stomach churned as I read Sophia's email to Emily. Your dad's a clueless old bastard too busy mourning to check zoning laws. We'll have this place sold for pennies before he blinks. The audacity of it, Emily, orchestrating another layer of fraud, turning my home into a fire sale bargain was a fresh wound. I'd bought this land for Margaret, spent $10 million on eco-friendly upgrades to make it her dream. Now, my daughter was spitting on that legacy, laughing at my sentimental attachment while plotting to rob me blind. The pain was a physical ache, a reminder of every sacrifice I'd made for her. The third shock was a heart-stopping revelation from Tom Reynolds, who called as I pored over Laura's contract. Bill, I found a hidden trust fund Emily set up with Victor Klein's help, $20 million siphoned from your charitable foundation. My vision darkened, rage and grief colliding as Tom showed me documents where Emily bragged to Victor. The old man's too busy playing philanthropist to notice we're looting his do-gooder fund. We'll be in Monaco while he's whining about Mom. The betrayal was a dagger to my core. My foundation, created to honor Margaret's passion for education, had funded scholarships for thousands of kids. Emily had defiled her mother's memory, turning our legacy into her slush fund. The image of her sipping champagne in Monaco, mocking me as a whining old prick, was unbearable, a betrayal that cut deeper than any theft. My inner struggle was a tempest, a clash of heartbreak and defiance that threatened to shatter me. I stood at the dining table, my hands gripping the edge, the wood worn smooth from years of family dinners. I'd raised Emily to be kind, to value integrity, yet here she was, a stranger who saw me as a mark to be fleeced. The grief was suffocating every memory of her childhood. From teaching her to ride a bike in the driveway to cheering at her Stanford graduation, felt like a lie. Had I been too generous, funding her every whim with million-dollar allowances, or was her heart always this cold, hidden behind her crocodile tears? The injustice of their mockery, calling me a clueless old bastard while stealing my life's work, ignited a fury that drowned out the pain. I wasn't their victim. I was their judge, and I'd make them pay for every cent, every lie, every cruel word. The drama escalated as Clara called from Monterey, her voice thick with emotion. "Bill, I found a burner phone Nathan left at your house last month. It's got text to a hitman, Frankie Russo, Vince's cousin. They're planning to stage an accident if you don't sign over power of attorney." She read Frankie's reply. "For $5 million, I'll make sure the old fool's brakes fail. He's too busy grieving to suspect a thing." My heart pounded, fear and fury colliding as I realized Emily was complicit in this murder plot. Clara's loyalty, her risk in uncovering this, was a beacon in the darkness, but it deepened my anguish. Why did my daughter want me dead? "We'll stop them, Bill," Clara vowed, her voice breaking. Her devotion was a lifeline, but it made Emily's betrayal cut deeper, a wound that bled with every heartbeat. I signed Laura's contract with a steady hand. The $75 million sale, a declaration of war. "Get it done, Laura. I want it closed before they know what hit them." Her nod was all business, but her eyes held respect. "You're sharper than they think, Bill." Then I called Richard, my voice like granite. "File charges against Sophia, Victor, and Frankie. Lock down the foundation's funds, and tell Maria to get dirt on Frankie's crew." Richard's response was lethal. "We'll have them in cuffs by Friday." Finally, I texted Tom. "Trace every cent of that $20 million trust. I want Emily's name on every charge." The plan was moving, a machine of justice fueled by my pain. The final twist came as I walked through the mansion, pausing at the grand staircase where Emily had posed for prom photos. My security system pinged a live feed, showed Jessica and Sophia sneaking into my backyard, planting fake flood damage signs to bolster their appraisal scam. Jessica's whisper was venomous. "The old sap's too busy dreaming of his dead wife to check the property line." My resolve hardened into steel. They thought they could break me, mock me, kill me. But I was William Carter, the man who'd built a $2 billion empire from a garage. This mansion, these memories, were mine to wield. I'd sell it, lock it, and leave them nothing but regret. The execution was underway, and their reckoning was closer than they could imagine. The Atherton mansion's grandeur felt hollow, its vaulted ceilings and hand-carved banisters, a silent rebuke to the life I was dismantling. The war against Emily, Nathan, Jessica, Vince, Kessler, Victor, Sophia, Mia, and now Frankie Russo, a hitman hired to stage my death, had turned my home into a chessboard, each move calculated to outwit their greed. The $75 million sale was locked in, my foundation's $20 million theft exposed, my patents secured, and their web of lies, fake appraisals, tabloid leaks, and forged diagnoses unraveling. Yet, the pain of Emily's betrayal gnawed at my soul, a wound that bled with every step I took toward reclaiming my life. My heart was a battlefield, torn between the love I still held for my daughter and a fury that burned brighter with each new deception. They mocked me as a whining old prick, but I was William Carter, and I was about to sever the ties that bound me to their treachery. The first shock hit like a sledgehammer as I sat in the solarium, the glass walls reflecting Margaret's beloved orchid collection. Maria Torres sent a text with a new recording, this one from a clandestine meeting between Emily and a corrupt city official, Councilman Derek Holt. His voice was slick with arrogance. "Carter's a senile old fool, too busy polishing his wife's shrine to notice us rezoning his land for condos. For $5 million, I'll push it through." Emily's reply was chilling. "Do it fast, Derek. The old bastard's so lost in his grief, he'll never see it coming." My breath caught, the betrayal a fresh stab to my heart. I donated $10 million to Atherton's community center in Margaret's name, and Derek had shaken my hand at the ribbon cutting, calling me a pillar of the community. Now, he was conspiring with my daughter to turn my estate into a developer's cash cow, mocking my pain as a weakness to exploit. The image of my home where Emily had learned to swim in the backyard pool raised for condos was a desecration of everything I'd built. The second blow came when Tom Reynolds arrived, his face ashen as he handed me a dossier. "Bill, Emily's been working with a PR firm to smear your reputation. They're planning stories that you've been defrauding investors for years." My stomach twisted as I read the draft article, titled "Tech Titans Fall. Carter's empire built on lies. The firm's notes, leaked by Tom, were brutal. Carter's a washed-up, has been crying over his dead wife while his daughter cleans up his mess. We'll paint him as a crook for $1 million. The betrayal was a gut punch. Emily wasn't just stealing my money. She was destroying my name, the legacy I'd spent decades building. I'd funded her first PR campaign, a $5 million launch for her startup, teaching her the power of reputation. Now, she was using that knowledge to brand me a criminal, laughing at my pathetic devotion to Margaret's memory. The pain was a vice around my heart, squeezing until I could barely breathe. The third shock was a heart-stopping call from Clara, her voice trembling from the Monterey safe house. "Bill, I found a hidden camera in your home office. Nathan planted it last week, and it's been streaming to a server tied to Vince." She sent me a screenshot of Vince's email to Frankie Russo. The old sap's too busy moping to notice we're watching his every move. If he fights back, we'll know, and Frankie'll handle him for $10 million. My vision blurred, rage and fear colliding, as I realized they'd turned my sanctuary into a surveillance state. The office, where I'd mentored Emily through her first business plan, was now a trap. Her betrayal, a violation of my most private space. Clara's loyalty, her courage in risking her safety to warn me, was a beacon, but it deepened my anguish. Why did my daughter despise me enough to spy on me, to plan my death? The weight of her cruelty was crushing, a betrayal that cut deeper than any theft. My inner struggle was a storm of grief and defiance, tearing at the fabric of my soul. I paced the solarium, the orchids a painful reminder of Margaret's gentle hands. Every memory of Emily, her first piano recital in this room, her tears when I fixed her broken bike felt like a lie, tainted by her vicious words. I'd given her everything, from a $20 million education to a life free of want, yet she saw me as a senile old fool to be exploited. The grief was overwhelming, a tidal wave of loss for the daughter I'd loved unconditionally. Had I been too indulgent, shielding her from struggle, or was her heart always this cold, hidden behind her calculated charm? The injustice of their mockery, their assumption I was too broken to fight, ignited a fury that burned through my pain. I wasn't their mark. I was their reckoning, and I'd make them pay for every lie, every cent, every cruel laugh. The drama escalated as I met with Laura Bennett in the mansion's kitchen, her eyes sharp with determination. "Bill, the Saudi buyer's ready to sign. But Vince tried to bribe my assistant to leak the deal. He's offering $15 million to sabotage it." Her voice was steady, her loyalty a stark contrast to Emily's treachery. The betrayal was another layer. Vince wasn't just undermining my sale. He was trying to steal it outright, his texts to Nathan dripping with contempt. Carter's too busy praying to his wife's ghost to see us jacking his deal. My resolve hardened as I told Laura, "Push the sale through. I want it done before they blink." Then Maria called with another twist. "Frankie Russo's crew is planning to break into your mansion tonight, thinking you're alone. They want your safe's contents, another $20 million in bonds." My heart raced, fear mingling with fury. Emily had greenlit this, her texts to Frankie cold. "The old bastard's too weak to fight. Grab the bonds and make it quick." I called Richard, my voice like iron. "Get security here tonight. File charges against Derek Holt and the PR firm, and tell Maria to set a trap for Frankie's crew." Richard's response was lethal. "We'll have them arrested mid-break-in. The feds are already on Holt." Clara, listening via secure line, choked back a sob. "Bill, you're stronger than they know. I'm with you." Her devotion was a lifeline, but it deepened my pain. Why did my daughter want me broken? The final shock came as I checked the hidden camera in my office. Footage showed Emily slipping a forged letter into my files, claiming I'd gifted her the mansion years ago. Her whisper was venomous. "The old prick's too busy grieving to check his own papers." My resolve turned to steel. They thought they could erase me, but I was William Carter, the man who'd built an empire from nothing. I'd sell this house, trap their crew, and leave them with nothing but regret. The execution was in motion, and their downfall was imminent. The Atherton mansion, once a beacon of love and legacy, now stood as a stage for my vengeance, its polished surfaces reflecting the cold light of betrayal. The war against Emily, Nathan, Jessica, Vince, Kessler, Victor, Sophia, Mia, Frankie Russo, and now Councilman Derek Holt had reached a fever pitch. $75 million for the house sale locked in. $20 million stolen from my foundation exposed, my patents secured, and a break-in planned to steal $20 million more in bonds. Each revelation, fake appraisals, tabloid smears, forged letters, and threats of violence had sharpened my resolve into a razor's edge. My heart was a crucible, burning with the agony of Emily's treachery and a fierce determination to reclaim my life. They mocked me as a sentimental old bastard, but I was William Carter, and I was about to spring a trap that would shatter their greedy dreams. The first shock came as I stood in the home theater, where Margaret and I had watched old Hitchcock films with Emily curled between us. Maria Torres sent an encrypted video, her voice urgent. "Bill, I caught Emily meeting with a dirty cop, Lieutenant Ryan Baxter, at a dive bar in Oakland." The footage showed Emily slipping Baxter a briefcase, her voice dripping with street venom. The old fool's too busy worshiping his dead wife's memory to notice us rigging his security system. "For $2 million, you make sure the cops look the other way when Frankie's crew hits the house." My stomach twisted, the betrayal a fresh wound. Baxter, who'd once thanked me for a $5 million donation to the police charity, was now in my daughter's pocket, ready to betray his badge for a cut of my fortune. The image of Emily, my little girl who'd once begged for popcorn during movie nights, plotting to disable my alarms, was a dagger to my heart. Her laughter at my pathetic grief, a poison in my veins. The second blow landed when Tom Reynolds called, his voice heavy with disbelief. "Bill, I found a shell company Emily set up to funnel another $30 million from your venture capital fund into offshore accounts." He sent me bank records showing transactions signed by Emily and Jessica, with notes from Victor Klein. Carter's a whining old prick, too lost in his sob story to see us bleeding him dry. The betrayal was a gut punch. My venture fund, created to support startups like the one Emily had dreamed of, was now her personal piggy bank. I'd given her a $10 million seed fund to chase her ambitions, only for her to turn it into a weapon, mocking my generosity while stealing my legacy. The pain was visceral, a searing ache as I pictured her toasting her theft in some tropical hideout, laughing at the has-been who'd trusted her. My mind screamed, how could she sell my dreams for $30 million? The third shock was a heart-stopping text from Clara, still hiding in Monterey. "Bill, I hacked into Nathan's cloud drive. He's been feeding your personal financial data to a black market broker, Ethan Cole, for a $20 million deal to sell your identity." My vision darkened as I read Ethan's reply. "Carter's too busy crying over his wife's ghost to know we're auctioning his life. We'll have every cent of his $2 billion by next month." The betrayal was a sledgehammer. Nathan wasn't just stealing my money. He was selling my very existence, my social security number, my banking codes, everything that made me William Carter. The office where I'd helped Emily with her college applications was now a hub for their crimes, her voice in my head calling me a clueless old sap who'd never fight back. Clara's loyalty, her risk in exposing this, was a lifeline, but it deepened my anguish. Why did my daughter want to erase me completely? My inner struggle was a tempest, a clash of heartbreak and fury that threatened to consume me. I paced the theater, the screen dark, a silent witness to my unraveling. Every memory of Emily, her laughter during our Sunday movie marathons, her pride when I framed her Stanford diploma was tainted by her cruelty. I'd given her a life of privilege, a $20 million trust fund, only to be mocked as a whining old fool who'd never suspect her schemes. The grief was crushing, a weight that pressed on my chest until I could barely breathe. Had I failed her, spoiling her with wealth? Or was her heart always this dark, hidden behind her practiced smiles? The injustice of their betrayal, their assumption I was too broken to resist, lit a fire in my gut that burned through the pain. I wasn't their victim, I was their judge, and I'd make them pay for every lie, every cent, every vicious word. The drama escalated as I met with Laura Bennett in the mansion's garage, where my Bentley gleamed under fluorescent lights. "Bill, the sale's on track, but Sophia tried to bribe the title company to delay it for $10 million, Laura said, her voice steady with loyalty. "I shut it down, but they're desperate." Her commitment was a stark contrast to Emily's treachery. But then Maria called with another twist. "Frankie Russo's crew is moving tonight, but Baxter's rigged the police dispatch to ignore your alarms." My heart raced, fear and fury colliding as I realized Emily had greenlit a heist in my own home. Her texts to Frankie brutal. "The old bastard's too weak to stop us. Grab the bonds and bounce." I called Richard, my voice like steel. "Set up private security for tonight. Tip off the feds about Baxter. And tell Maria to plant fake bonds in the safe." Richard's response was cold, calculated. "We'll catch Frankie's crew red-handed, and Baxter's done." The final shock came as I checked the security feed from the garage. Footage showed Nathan and Jessica tampering with my Bentley's brakes. Jessica sneering. "The old sap's too busy dreaming of his dead wife to check his car. One crash and we're golden." My resolve turned to iron. They weren't just stealing, they were trying to kill me. mocking my grief while planning my funeral. I called Clara, her voice trembling with loyalty. "Bill, you're stronger than they know. We'll stop them." Her devotion was a beacon, but it deepened my pain. Why did my daughter want me dead? I stood in the theater, clutching a photo of Margaret and Emily from a long-ago movie night. The sail was set, the trap was ready, and the feds were waiting. Emily, Nathan, and their crew thought they could bury me, but I was William Carter, the man who'd built an empire from nothing. Tonight, they'd walk into my trap, and their greed would be their undoing. The execution was in full swing, and their reckoning was hours away. The Atherton Mansion's silence was a heavy shroud, its grand halls now a labyrinth of betrayal, where every shadow held a memory of Margaret's warmth and Emily's treachery. The trap was set $75 million for the house sale secured, $20 million stolen from my foundation exposed, Frankie Russo's crew primed for a federal ambush, and a dirty cop, Lieutenant Baxter, about to fall. The layers of deceit, fake appraisals, tabloid smears, forged letters, identity theft, rezoning scams, and murder plots had forged my grief into a weapon of vengeance. My heart was a furnace, burning with the pain of my daughter's cruelty and a fierce resolve to reclaim my life. They mocked me as a whining old sap, but I was William Carter, and tonight, the fortress I'd built would fall on their heads, crushing their greedy dreams. The first shock came as I stood in the master suite, where Margaret's perfume still lingered in the air, her silk scarf draped over the vanity like a ghost. Maria Torres sent an urgent message with a hacked voicemail from Emily to a new conspirator, Vanessa Reed, a shady crisis manager known for burying corporate scandals. Vanessa's voice was pure venom. "Carter's a pathetic old bastard, too busy clutching his wife's old rags to see us torching his legacy. For $10 million, I'll spin a story that he's been laundering money for years." My chest tightened, the betrayal a fresh blade through my heart. Vanessa, who'd once pitched me on a charity campaign, was now in Emily's pocket, ready to paint me as a criminal mastermind. I'd donated $15 million to her nonprofit, only for her to turn my generosity into a weapon, mocking my grief while planning to ruin my name. The image of my daughter orchestrating this smear, laughing at my rags, was a wound that bled anew, tearing at the memories of our quiet evenings in this very room. The second blow landed when Tom Reynolds burst through the door, his face pale with urgency. "Bill, I found a backdoor in your company's servers. Emily's been selling your trade secrets to a Russian tech syndicate for $50 million. He showed me encrypted chats where Nathan bragged to Mia Chen. The old fool's too busy mourning his dead wife to lock down his servers. We'll be in Moscow sipping vodka while he's crying in a home." The betrayal was a sledgehammer. My trade secrets, the algorithms that secured global banks, were the heart of my empire. I'd spent $20 million mentoring Emily in cybersecurity, only for her to sell my life's work to foreign criminals, mocking me as a has-been who'd never suspect her. The pain was excruciating, a physical ache as I pictured her betraying the trust I'd placed in her. The nights we'd spent debugging code together now a cruel joke. The third shock was a gut-wrenching call from Clara, her voice trembling from Monterey. "Bill, I found a burner phone in your guest room. Jessica's been recording your private calls with your board members for a $5 million deal with a rival firm. She sent me audio where Jessica sneered to Vince. Carter's too busy praying to his wife's ghost to notice we're taping his every word. We'll own his board by next week." My vision blurred, rage and grief colliding as I realized my own home was a surveillance hub. My private conversations, grief-filled talks about Margaret's legacy sold to the highest bidder. The guest room, where Emily had once planned her wedding, was now a traitor's lair, her betrayal a violation of my sanctuary. Clara's loyalty, her courage in risking her life to warn me, was a beacon, but it deepened my anguish. Why did my daughter despise me enough to commodify my pain? My inner struggle was a maelstrom, a clash of heartbreak and defiance that threatened to break me. I paced the master suite, my hands brushing Margaret's scarf, her scent, a painful reminder of the life we'd built. Every memory of Emily, her giggles as we danced in this room, her pride when I gifted her a diamond necklace for her 21st birthday, was tainted by her cruelty. I'd given her a $50 million trust fund, a life of ease, only to be mocked as a pathetic old bastard who'd never fight back. The grief was crushing, a tidal wave of loss for the daughter I'd loved beyond reason. Had I been too indulgent, giving her everything without teaching her gratitude? Or was her heart always this dark, hidden behind her calculated tears? The injustice of their betrayal, their assumption, I was too broken to resist, lit a fire in my gut that burned through the pain. I wasn't their mark. I was their reckoning, and I'd make them pay for every lie, every scent, every vicious word. The drama escalated as I met with Laura Bennett in the mansion's study, her eyes fierce with loyalty. "Bill, The sale's moving closing in 4 days, but Derek Holt's trying to block it with a fake environmental violation, bribed for $5 million. Her voice was steady, but then Maria called with another twist. Frankie Russo's crew is bringing a mole, Greg Parker, your old security chief, to bypass your alarms tonight. Greg's betrayal was a knife to the gut. He'd guarded my family for a decade, sworn loyalty at Margaret's funeral, yet his texts to Frankie were brutal. The old sap's too busy grieving to change his codes. We'll clean out his safe for $10 million. My heart raced, fear and fury colliding as I realized Emily had turned even my trusted allies against me. I called Richard, my voice like iron. Get the feds to the house tonight. Charge Holt, Greg, and Vanessa, and tell Maria to plant fake trade secrets in the server. Richard's response was lethal. We'll have them all in cuffs by dawn. The final shock came as I checked the security feed from the study. Footage showed Emily slipping a poisoned bottle of my favorite scotch into the liquor cabinet, whispering to Nathan, "The old fool's too busy toasting his dead wife to check his booze. One sip and we're set." My resolve turned to steel. They weren't just stealing, they were trying to murder me, mocking my grief while planning my death. I called Clara, her voice trembling with loyalty. "Bill, you're stronger than they know. We'll end this." Her devotion was a lifeline, but it deepened my pain. Why did my daughter want me dead? I stood in the master suite, clutching Margaret's scarf, her eyes in my mind urging me on. The sale was set, the feds were ready, and the trap was primed. Emily, Nathan, and their crew thought they could erase me, but I was William Carter, the man who'd built an empire from nothing. Tonight, their greed would lead them into my ambush, and their downfall would be absolute. The Atherton mansion loomed like a monument to my shattered trust, its opulent rooms now a stage for the final act of my vengeance. The trap was primed, $75 million for the house sale locked in, the feds ready to ambush Frankie Russo's crew, my foundations stolen, $20 million exposed, and a web of betrayals, fake appraisals, tabloid smears, forged letters, identity theft, rezoning scams, poisoned scotch, and murder plots unraveled. Emily, Nathan, Jessica, Vince, Kessler, Victor, Sophia, Mia, Frankie, Derek Holt, Vanessa Reed, and now Lieutenant Baxter had woven a tapestry of deceit, each thread a fresh wound in my heart. My soul was a furnace, burning with the agony of my daughter's cruelty and a steely resolve to reclaim my life. They mocked me as a pathetic old sap, but I was William Carter, and tonight I'd make their greed their undoing. The first shock hit as I stood in the conservatory, surrounded by Margaret's beloved grand piano, where Emily had played her first notes at 5. Maria Torres sent a hacked text exchange between Nathan and a new player, Cassandra Lyle, a corrupt estate planner who'd once advised me on my will. Cassandra's message was venomous. Carter's a washed-up old fool, too busy clinging to his wife's piano to see us rewriting his estate. For $15 million, I'll make sure Emily inherits everything. My heart sank, the betrayal a searing blade. Cassandra, who'd sat in this room praising Margaret's charity work, was now helping Emily steal my legacy, mocking my grief as a weakness to exploit. I'd paid her a $2 million retainer for her loyalty, only for her to turn my trust into a weapon. The image of Emily plotting to claim my $2 billion empire, laughing at my sentimental attachment to this piano, was a wound that bled with every breath. The second blow came when Tom Reynolds called, his voice tight with urgency. "Bill, I found a secret deal Emily made with a venture capitalist, Leo Grant, to sell your private equity stakes for $80 million. He sent me emails where Leo sneered to Nathan. The old bastard's too busy mourning his dead wife to notice us carving up his portfolio. We'll be in Dubai while he's crying in a home. The betrayal was a gut punch. My equity stakes, built to fund tech startups in Margaret's memory, were now Emily's cash grab. I'd given her a $10 million stake in my firm to teach her responsibility, only for her to sell it to a vulture, mocking me as a whining old prick who'd never suspect. The pain was excruciating, a physical ache as I pictured her betraying the dreams we'd shared, the nights we'd spent planning her future in this very conservatory. The third shock was a heart-stopping text from Clara, her voice trembling from Monterey. "Bill, I found a hidden file on Jessica's laptop. She's been bribing your personal chef, Marco Diaz, to slip sedatives into your meals for a $1 million payout. She sent audio where Marco bragged to Vince. Carter's too busy toasting his wife's ghost to taste the drugs. We'll have him doped up and docile by next week." My vision darkened, rage and fear colliding as I realized my own kitchen was a battlefield, my meals poisoned by a man I'd trusted. Marco, who'd cooked for Emily's Sweet 16, was now in her pocket, his betrayal a violation of my home's heart. Clara's loyalty, her courage in exposing this, was a beacon. But it deepened my anguish. Why did my daughter want to drug me into submission? My inner struggle was a storm, a clash of heartbreak and defiance that threatened to shatter me. I ran my fingers over the piano keys, hearing Margaret's gentle encouragement. "You're stronger than they know, Bill." Every memory of Emily, her tiny hands on these keys, her pride when I applauded her recitals was tainted by her cruelty. I'd given her a $50 million trust, a life of privilege, only to be mocked as a clueless old fool who'd never fight back. The grief was crushing, a tidal wave of loss for the daughter I'd loved beyond reason. Had I spoiled her, giving her everything without teaching gratitude? Or was her heart always this dark, hidden behind her crocodile tears? The injustice of their betrayal, their assumption I was too broken to resist, lit a fire in my gut that burned through the pain. I wasn't their mark, I was their judge, and I'd make them pay for every lie, every scent, every vicious word. The drama escalated as I met with Laura Bennett in the conservatory, her eyes blazing with loyalty. "Bill, the sale's closing tomorrow, but Vanessa Reed's spreading rumors to scare off buyers, claiming your house is cursed." Her voice was steady, but then Maria called with another twist. Cassandra Lyles forged a new will, naming Emily as sole heir, backdated to look legit. Cassandra's texts to Emily were brutal. "The old sap's too busy grieving to check his own will. We'll clean him out for 20 million. My heart raced, fear and fury colliding as I realized Emily was rewriting my legacy to erase me. I called Richard, my voice like iron. "File charges against Cassandra and Marco, secure the equity stakes, and tell the feds to watch Leo Grant." Richard's response was lethal. "We'll have them all locked down by tonight." Empsing. The final shock came as I checked the security feed from the kitchen. Footage showed Nathan and Emily planting a fake ledger in my office, claiming I'd embezzled 30 million from my own company. Emily's whisper was venomous. "The old fool's too busy dreaming of his dead wife to notice we're framing him." My resolve turned to steel. They weren't just stealing, they were trying to destroy my name, drug me, and erase my existence. I called Clara, her voice trembling with loyalty. "Bill, you're stronger than they know. We'll end this." Her devotion was a lifeline, but it deepened my pain. Why did my daughter want me ruined? I stood at the piano, clutching a photo of Margaret teaching Emily to play. The sale was hours away, the feds were in position, and the trap was set. Emily, Nathan, and their crew thought they could bury me. But I was William Carter, the man who'd built an empire from nothing. Tomorrow they'd walk into my ambush, and their greed would be their downfall. The final preparations were complete, and their reckoning was imminent. The Atherton Mansion's grandeur was a fading echo, its marble corridors now a hollow stage for the climax of my vengeance. The trap was primed, $75 million for the house sale finalized. Frankie Russo's crew set for a federal ambush, my foundations stolen, 20 million exposed. And a labyrinth of betrayals, fake appraisals, tabloid smears, forged wills, poisoned scotch, identity theft, rezoning scams, and murder plots laid bare. Emily, Nathan, Jessica, Vince, Kessler, Victor, Sophia, Mia, Frankie, Derek Holt, Vanessa Reed, Lieutenant Baxter, Cassandra Lyle, Leo Grant, and Marco Diaz had woven a tapestry of deceit, each thread a fresh wound in my heart. My soul was a crucible, burning with the agony of my daughter's cruelty and a steely resolve to reclaim my dignity. They mocked me as a clueless old bastard. But I was William Carter, and today I'd deliver a note that would shatter their world. The first shock came as I stood in the foyer, where Margaret and I had once hung Emily's school artwork, now replaced by the cold glint of my vengeance. Maria Torres sent a hacked email from Emily to a new conspirator, Rachel Nguyen, a shady art dealer who'd once appraised Margaret's collection. Rachel's message was venomous. "Carter's a washed-up old fool, too busy crying over his wife's dusty paintings to see us fencing his art for 10 million. My chest tightened, the betrayal a searing blade. Rachel, who'd sat in this foyer praising Margaret's taste, was now helping Emily sell our priceless collection Picassos and Monet we'd bought to honor her love of art. I'd gifted Emily a $5 million painting for her 30th birthday, only for her to turn it into a commodity, mocking my grief as a pathetic distraction. The image of my daughter auctioning Margaret's legacy, laughing at my dusty devotion, was a wound that bled with every heartbeat. The second blow landed when Tom Reynolds texted, his voice tight with urgency, through a voice note. "Bill, I found a secret deal Emily made with a crypto kingpin, Zane Parker, to launder 30 million of your stolen funds through a blockchain scam." He sent screenshots where Zane sneered to Nathan. The old prick's too busy mourning his dead wife to notice us washing his cash. We'll be in the Maldives while he's whining in a home. The betrayal was a gut punch. My crypto investments, meant to secure Emily's future, were now her money laundering scheme. I taught her blockchain basics, spending 10 million on her tech education, only for her to weaponize it against me, mocking me as a has-been who'd never suspect. The pain was excruciating, a physical ache as I pictured her betraying our shared dreams. The nights we'd spent coding in this very foyer, now a cruel mockery. The third shock was a heart-stopping call from Clara, her voice trembling from Monterey. Bill, I found a hidden audio file on Vince's server. Emily's been bribing your longtime lawyer, Greg Sullivan, to sabotage your legal defenses for a $5 million cut. She sent a recording where Greg bragged to Jessica. Carter's too busy praying to his wife's ghost to check his contracts. We'll tank his lawsuits and clean him out. My vision darkened, rage and fear colliding as I realized my own lawyer, who drafted my will, was now in Emily's pocket. The foyer, where I'd signed trust papers for Emily's future, was now a traitor's den, her betrayal a violation of my last bastion of trust. Clara's loyalty, her courage in risking her life to warn me, was a beacon. But it deepened my anguish. Why did my daughter despise me enough to corrupt every ally I had? My inner struggle was a maelstrom, a clash of heartbreak and defiance that threatened to shatter me. I stood at the foyer's grand mirror, seeing Margaret's eyes in my reflection, her voice whispering, "You're stronger than they know, Bill." Every memory of Emily, her crayon drawings on these walls, her laughter when I pushed her on the backyard swing was tainted by her cruelty. I'd given her a $50 million trust, a life of privilege, only to be mocked as a whining old fool who'd never fight back. The grief was crushing, a tidal wave of loss for the daughter I'd loved beyond reason. Had I spoiled her, giving her everything without teaching gratitude? Or was her heart always this dark, hidden behind her calculated tears? The injustice of their betrayal, their assumption I was too broken to resist, lit a fire in my gut that burned through the pain. I wasn't their mark. I was their judge, and I'd make them pay for every lie, every cent, every vicious word. The drama escalated as I sat at the foyer's antique desk, penning the note that would be their undoing. My careful handwriting, honed over decades of signing contracts, carried the weight of my pain. Dear Emily and Nathan, you thought me a fool, plotting to steal my $75 million home, my art, my crypto, my legacy. I've sold the mansion, secured my fortune, and your belongings are in storage. You'll face the feds for your crimes. I gave you everything. You repaid me with poison and lies. Learn your lesson. Bill, then Maria called with another twist. Rachel Nguyen's planning to smuggle your art out tonight, thinking you're asleep. Rachel's texts to Emily were brutal. The old sap's too busy grieving to guard his paintings. We'll be in Paris by dawn. My heart raced, fury overtaking fear. I called Richard. Tell the feds to intercept Rachel's shipment. Charge Zane and Greg. The note's ready. Richard's response was lethal. We'll have them in cuffs tonight. The final shock came as I taped the note to the foyer's front door, the security feed showing Emily and Nathan's car pulling into the driveway. A hidden mic, planted by Jessica, caught Emily's sneer. The old bastard's probably crying in his scotch, too weak to stop us. My resolve turned to steel. They weren't just stealing, they were reveling in my pain, plotting to erase me. I called Clara, her voice trembling with loyalty. Bill, you're stronger than they know. We'll end this. Her devotion was a lifeline, but it deepened my pain. Why did my daughter hate me so much? I stood in the foyer, clutching a locket with Margaret's photo, her eyes urging me on. The sale was done. The feds were ready, and the note was set. Emily, Nathan, and their crew thought they could bury me. But I was William Carter, the man who'd built an empire from nothing. Tonight, they'd face the consequences of their greed, and my note would be their reckoning. The Atherton Mansion, once a haven of love and legacy, now stood as a monument to my daughter's betrayal. Its grand foyer, a silent witness to the final act of my vengeance. The trap was sprung, $75 million for the house sale finalized, Frankie Russo's crew moments from a federal ambush, my stolen millions exposed, and a web of treachery, fake appraisals, tabloid smears, forged wills, poisoned scotch, identity theft, rezoning scams, and murder plots laid bare. Emily, Nathan, and their cabal of conspirators, Jessica, Vince, Kessler, Victor, Sophia, Mia, Frankie, Derek Holt, Vanessa Reed, Lieutenant Baxter, Cassandra Lyle, Leo Grant, Marco Diaz, and Rachel Nguyen had mocked me as a pathetic old sap, but I was William Carter, And today, their greed would be their undoing. My heart was a furnace, burning with the agony of Emily's cruelty and a resolve to reclaim my life. As I sat in my new Menlo Park apartment, watching the live feed from the mansion's hidden camera, I clutched Margaret's locket, ready to witness their reckoning. The first shock came as the camera feed flickered to life, showing Emily and Nathan at the mansion's front door, their smug confidence palpable. Emily fumbled with her key, her face twisting when it didn't turn. "What the hell?" she snapped, her voice sharp through the mic. Nathan's sneer was pure street venom. The old fool probably forgot how locks work, too busy crying over his dead wife. My chest tightened, their mockery a fresh wound. Then Emily spotted my note taped to the door, her hands trembling as she tore it open. Her eyes scanned my words, Nathan reading over her shoulder, and their faces crumpled shock, then horror, then rage. "He sold the damn house," Emily shrieked, her voice breaking. 75 million, gone. That bastard played us. Nathan snatched the note, his voice a growl. "The old prick outsmarted us, Em. We're screwed." The betrayal they'd planned, stealing my home, my art, my crypto was now their trap, my note a mirror reflecting their greed. But then, a new twist. Jessica arrived, her voice dripping with panic. "Vince says the feds are onto us. That old sap set us up." My heart raced, their cabal was unraveling, and I'd orchestrated it. The second blow landed as the feed caught Frankie Russo's crew creeping through the backyard, only to be swarmed by federal agents, their flashlights cutting through the night. Frankie's scream echoed, "Carter, you washed up bastard, you'll pay for this." Handcuffs clicked, and Maria texted me, "Frankie's down, along with Greg Parker and Lieutenant Baxter." Evidence secured. The betrayal deepened as Emily, still in the foyer, turned on Nathan, her voice venomous. "This is your fault, you idiot. You said the old fool was too weak to fight." Nathan shoved back, his street slang cutting. "Don't pin this on me, you greedy bitch. You wanted his billions." Their alliance, built on mocking my grief, was crumbling, but then another shock hit. Rachel Nguyen's van, loaded with my stolen art, was intercepted by the feds blocks away. Her texts to Emily frantic, "The old sap's sharper than we thought. We're done." My daughter's plan to fence Margaret's Picassos, to laugh at my dusty devotion, was now a federal crime scene, and I felt a surge of vindication laced with pain. The third shock was a heart-stopping revelation, as Tom Reynolds called, his voice trembling with urgency. "Bill, I found a final betrayal. Emily bribed your childhood friend, Eddie Walsh, to testify you were unstable for a $5 million payout." Eddie's email to Nathan was brutal. "Carter's a whining old prick, too busy mourning his wife to see me selling him out. Easy money." My vision blurred. The betrayal, a sledgehammer. Eddie, who'd stood by me in the early days, who'd toasted Margaret at our wedding, was now in Emily's pocket, ready to lie for cash. The foyer, where Eddie had once helped me hang Christmas lights, was now a symbol of treachery. His betrayal, a wound that cut deeper than any other. Claire's voice came through from Monterey, trembling with loyalty. "Bill, you're stronger than they know. We've got them." Her devotion was a lifeline, but it deepened my anguish. Why did my daughter corrupt everyone I loved? My inner struggle was a tempest, a clash of heartbreak and defiance that threatened to break me. I sat in my new apartment, the sterile walls a stark contrast to the mansion's warmth, clutching Margaret's locket. Every memory of Emily, her laughter as we decorated the foyer for her prom, her tears when I gave her Margaret's earrings, was tainted by her cruelty. I'd given her a $50 million trust, a life of privilege, only to be mocked as a clueless old fool who'd never fight back. The grief was crushing, a tidal wave of loss for the daughter I'd loved beyond reason. Had I failed her, giving her everything without teaching the knowledge of gratitude, or was her heart always this dark, hidden behind her crocodile tears? The injustice of their betrayal, their assumption, I was too broken to resist, lit a fire in my gut. The knowledge of their greed, exposed through Clara's courage and Tom's diligence, fueled my resolve. I wasn't their mark. I was their judge, teaching a lesson they'd never forget, a knowledge forged in pain and justice. The drama escalated as the feed showed Emily collapsing to her knees, sobbing as Nathan stormed out, yelling, "You ruined us, you stupid cow." The feds swarmed the mansion, arresting Jessica and Vanessa Reed, who screamed, "The old sap played us all." My plan had worked unlike the original story, where I merely watched from afar. I'd chosen to confront them in person. I drove to the mansion, heart pounding, and stood before Emily as the feds cuffed her. "Dad, how could you?" she wailed, but her tears were hollow. "You taught me this lesson," I said, my voice steady. You betrayed the knowledge of family for greed. The education of loyalty, the lesson of trust, were values she'd spurned, and now she faced the consequences. The education of justice, the knowledge of accountability, were my final gifts to her, a lesson etched in her downfall. The education of life teaches us that betrayal cuts deepest when it comes from those we love, but the lesson of resilience shows we can rise above. This story, steeped in the knowledge of American ambition and family ties, reflects the pain of broken trust and the power of reclaiming one's worth. What did you feel watching this unfold? How does this education in betrayal and justice resonate with your life? Share your thoughts in the comments on our YouTube channel. RevengeX, hit like, subscribe, and share for more gripping stories daily. Your lesson from this tale, your deepest emotions, matter to us. Wishing you strength, health, and joy every day. May your life be filled with health and peace, and your heart with the education of love. Stay strong, stay healthy, and we'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.